Welcome to the History Stories podcast. We pick fascinating, wild stories taken straight from history in a fun, entertaining way.
Absolutely.
Each week, we take the best stories out of history.
I love it.
Share, rate, and follow the show for more captivating stories from the world of flash culture. And today, you sent us some truly captivating history books and uncovered sources.
Yes, you did.
And today, we're embarking on a historic road trip to a remote and mysterious island in the Pacific Ocean.
Ooh, sounds exciting.
Rapa Nui, also known as Easter Island. Our mission on this historic road trip is to unpack the secrets behind those colossal stone figures you've been reading about the Moai.
It is absolutely fascinating material that you brought to the table. We're looking at nearly 1,000 of these monolithic human figures.
I know, it's incredible.
Some weighing over 80 tons. It really makes you wonder, considering the island's apparent isolation and limited resources, how did those ancient Rapa Nui people manage to carve, transport, and erect these immense statues? And perhaps the most intriguing question, which your sources also delved into, is, what was their purpose?
Okay, let's start by thinking about the sheer improbability of the Moai project itself, based on what you've uncovered in these books.
Yeah.
When you first encounter this small, isolated island dotted with these giant stone figures, it almost feels like a historical riddle, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Especially when we consider the time frame. Major Moai construction occurred roughly between 1250 and 1500 AD, a relatively short period in the grand sweep of history.
That's a crucial point. Rapa Nui is a tiny speck in the vast Pacific.
It's tiny.
A remote Chilean islet at the southeasternmost tip of the Polynesian Triangle.
What?
Its geographical isolation, as your sources emphasize, played a significant role in the unique development of its culture. And as you said, the sheer scale of the Moai project seems completely disproportionate to the island's apparent limitations.
And the island's origins are dramatic, formed by volcanic activity millions of years ago. As detailed in one of the books you shared, it wasn't some resource-rich paradise in the way we might imagine a civilization needing to build something of this magnitude.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Its volcanic origins not only sculpted the dramatic landscape we see today, but also provided the very raw materials for the Moai. The primary material was a relatively soft volcanic rock called tuff.
Tough, okay.
Which was abundant in certain areas. Then you have the remarkable story of the Polynesian explorers. Can you imagine those incredible voyages across vast stretches of ocean, eventually leading them to this isolated land, sometime between 800 and 1200 AD, as several of your sources note?
It really puts human navigation and exploration into perspective. And these weren't just brief visits. They established a thriving and distinct culture, as your readings highlight. The Moai are, without a doubt, the most iconic part of their archaeological legacy, the first thing that comes to mind when anyone thinks of Easter Island.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as the books you've provided explain, these monumental statues weren't merely artistic expressions. They held profound meaning for the Rapa Nui. The prevailing belief is that they were primarily carved to honor important ancestors, acting as a tangible connection between the living and the spiritual realm. So it wasn't just about aesthetics.
So, based on what we're seeing in your sources, there was a genuine spiritual purpose behind these massive figures, not just a desire to create large sculptures.
Exactly. The Rapa Nui believed that the Moai embodied what they called the living faces, or Aringa Ora, of deified ancestors, known as Aringa Ora Atatapuna.
Wow,
These weren't simply representations. They were believed to be imbued with a sacred power known as mana. This concept of mana, which your readings touch upon, is absolutely key to understanding their significance.
Mana, that sense of spiritual power or prestige.
Yeah.
So the Moai served not just as memorials, but as conduits of this ancestral power. And the sheer number of statues being constructed, as your sources detail, suggests a highly organized society. Wouldn't you agree?
Indeed. The scale of construction strongly indicates a hierarchical social structure, likely with an elite ruling class who commissioned these impressive undertakings.
No.
It wouldn't have been a spontaneous or casual endeavor. The level of planning and sustained effort required points to a significant degree of social organization.
And the varying sizes of the Moai is something that's quite evident in the images within your books that wasn't random, was it? Did the size also relate to this idea of mana and social standing?
It's highly probable. The varying sizes likely reflected the amount of mana and the social standing of the individual or the clan that the Moai represented. A larger statue would likely signify greater prestige or a more significant ancestor. This differentiation in size hints at the social complexities of the Rapa Nui.
Now let's delve into where these incredible figures actually originated. Your sources frequently mention the Rano quarry.
Yes.
Sounds like that was the epicenter of Moai production.
Precisely. The Rano volcano was the primary source, essentially a vast outdoor factory for the Moai. What's truly remarkable, and something your readings likely emphasized, is that hundreds of unfinished statues still remain there, frozen in time at various stages of completion. It's like stepping directly into the middle of this ancient construction project.
It must be an awe-inspiring place to witness firsthand. And these unfinished moai have provided us with crucial clues, as your sources explain, about the techniques used to carve them, what kind of tools were employed.
Yes, they offer invaluable insights into the carving process. The Rapa Nui artisans primarily used simple handheld stone tools called toki.
Toki?
These were mostly fashioned from basalt, a harder volcanic rock available on the island. Interestingly, the most highly prized toki, the ones made from a really high-quality white rock, came from a specific area known as the Rua Toki Toki quarry, highlighting a degree of specialization in their toolmaking.
So even within their seemingly limited resources, they were selective about the quality of their tools. That makes perfect sense for such intricate work. And the carving process itself, as described in your book, sounds incredibly labor-intensive. How did they even begin to shape these massive figures using just stone implements?
It was a meticulous and patient process.
Wow.
They would first outline the figure directly onto the rock face. Then they would begin chipping away at the surrounding stone, working primarily from the front of the moai and gradually detaching it from the bedrock. It was fundamentally a subtractive process, slowly revealing the statue within the rock. The sheer amount of time and effort involved for each statue is staggering.
Imagine the skill and precision that would have been required using nothing but stone tools to create such remarkably detailed figures. And even after they were fully carved, they weren't entirely finished, were they? There was a subsequent polishing stage, according to your sources.
That's correct. The final stages involve polishing the surface of the moai using pumice, another volcanic rock found on the island. This would have smoothed out the rough surfaces left by the carving tools and given the moai a more refined appearance. This attention to detail speaks to the importance placed on the finished product.
And it wasn't just one type of rock they utilized either. You mentioned tuff being the main material, but also basalt and even that striking red scoria for the distinctive hats, the pukau, as detailed in your readings.
Exactly. While the majority of moai were carved from the softer tuff of Rano, they also utilized other volcanic materials like basalt for some individual moai and trachyte as well. Then there's that vibrant red scoria, which they quarried specifically from the Punapau volcano for the pukau. The fact that they deliberately selected different stone types for different features really underscores a sophisticated understanding of the properties of the materials they had available and their aesthetic qualities.
Okay, so they've painstakingly carved this massive statue out of the rock. Now comes what seems like the truly insurmountable part, at least based on initial impressions. How on earth did they move these things across the island? Some of these ahu, these stone platforms where they eventually stood, were several miles away from the quarry, as your sources clearly indicate. This is precisely where the mystery truly deepens, and it sparked countless theories over the years, many of which are explored in the material you've shared. The oral traditions of the Rapa Nui people themselves speak of the moai walking to their final positions, a captivating idea that has inspired a great deal of research.
Walking statues, it sounds almost fantastical. But of course, there have been more grounded scientific theories proposed, haven't there? The idea of using log rollers, for instance, is quite prevalent in the literature.
Yes, the log roller theory is one of the most historically discussed. It suggests that the moai were placed upright on some kind of wooden framework that was then rolled over logs, much like moving a very heavy piece of furniture. Experiments have indeed demonstrated that this is feasible, at least for smaller statues.
But as several of your sources point out, the sheer quantity of timber that would have been necessary to transport the larger moai in this way raises some significant questions, especially when we consider the later deforestation of the island. It seems like a potentially unsustainable and resource-intensive method for such a large-scale undertaking.
That's the central challenge with log roller theory. It's difficult to reconcile the potential demand for vast amounts of wood with the documented environmental changes on the island. This is where the walking theory has gained increasing attention and support in recent years, as reflected in some of the more contemporary research you've provided.
So how exactly does the walking theory propose they moved these colossal figures? It certainly sounds more intriguing than simply rolling them along on logs.
The walking theory posits that the Moai were moved in an upright position by carefully rocking them side to side while simultaneously pulling them forward with ropes attached to the head and the base. It's a bit like very slowly and deliberately inching them along, pivoting on their base.
That sounds incredibly precarious. Is there any tangible evidence beyond the oral traditions to support this seemingly unconventional method?
Yes, there is some quite compelling evidence. Many Moai found along ancient transport routes have a distinctive angled base. This particular shape would have facilitated that forward-leaning posture necessary for this rocking or walking motion. Furthermore, and perhaps more convincingly, there have been several experiments where relatively small groups of people have successfully moved large replica Moai using precisely this technique, demonstrating its practical feasibility.
Wow, so it wasn't magic, but a testament to human ingenuity and a deep understanding of physics.
Yeah.
What about some of the other transportation ideas mentioned in your sources? Theories involving sledges or even using banana tree stumps as lubricants?
Those theories do exist in the historical record, but they generally have less robust empirical support. The idea of sledges being pulled by massive teams of people, for instance, would have potentially required an enormous workforce, perhaps even 1,500 individuals for the very largest Moai, which seems logistically challenging. And while banana tree stumps might have provided some minimal lubrication, the sheer volume needed for long distances and the heavy weights involved make this explanation less likely. Similarly, the theory of transporting them by rafts along the coast lacks clear archaeological evidence of suitable loading and unloading sites.
So, based on the current understanding reflected in your sources, the upright walking theory appears to be the most plausible explanation we have right now for how they managed to move these colossal figures across the island. Now, imagine you've successfully transported this multi-ton statue across miles of often rough terrain. You're still not finished. You still have the monumental task of standing it upright on those ahu platforms.
Exactly. Erecting these colossal figures onto the ahu would have been another monumental engineering challenge, demanding considerable skill and ingenuity. The most widely accepted method, and one supported by archaeological evidence and experimental archaeology, involves the strategic use of levers and ramps constructed from earth and stone, as many of your readings describe.
So, a kind of gradual lifting process, utilizing the readily available materials of the island itself to their advantage.
Precisely. By gradually lifting the Moai using levers and incrementally building up the ramp with earth and stones, they could have slowly tilted the statues into an upright position. This method aligns well with the resources they had at their disposal, and again, modern experiments have successfully replicated this technique. It's even quite possible that these erection ramps eventually became integrated into the structure of the ahu itself.
And what about those pukao, those distinctive red hats? How did they manage to get those substantial cylinders of rock on top of the Moai's heads?
For the pukao, which were also quite heavy, researchers believe they employed a clever technique called parbuckling. This involves wrapping a rope around the cylindrical pukao and using it to roll the stone up a ramp onto the Moai's head. It's an efficient way to move a heavy cylindrical object with a relatively controlled application of force.
It's just astounding to consider the level of ingenuity at play. And one of your sources highlighted something really interesting, that the eye holes of the Moai often weren't carved until the statue was actually in place on the ahu. Why was that?
That's a highly significant detail.
Mm-hmm.
The prevailing belief, strongly supported by the archaeological context of unfinished Moai, is that the insertion of the inlaid eyes, typically made of coral and obsidian or red scoria, was the final crucial step that awakened the Moai, imbuing it with the ancestral spirit and completing its transformation into a powerful guardian. It was the moment it truly became significant and potent.
So these weren't merely static sculptures. They were believed to be imbued with spiritual power and served a vital role within Rapa Nui society. How were they typically positioned on the island, and what were they believed to do for the community?
Generally, the Moai were positioned with their backs to the sea and facing inland towards the villages. The prevailing belief, detailed in your sources, is that they acted as guardians of the land and its people, offering protection and promoting things like agricultural fertility and overall abundance. They were seen as sentinels watching over the community.
So they were actively looking out for the well-being of the Rapa Nui people. And their significance extended beyond just protection. They also served as powerful symbols of authority, didn't they?
Absolutely. Beyond their protective function, the Moai served as potent symbols of both religious and political authority. As we discussed earlier, they are considered repositories of that sacred spiritual power, mana, embodying the prestige and lineage of important chiefs and ancestors. Their very presence reinforced the social hierarchy and the power of the ruling elite.
One of your sources mentioned a fascinating exception to this inland-facing pattern, the seven Moai at Ahuakivi. What's the unique story behind them facing the ocean?
That's a truly unique case. Local legend recounts that these seven Moai represent seven explorers who are awaiting the arrival of their king. It's a captivating deviation from the norm and beautifully illustrates the richness and specificity of Rapa Nui oral tradition, providing a glimpse into their legendary past.
Now, we know from your readings that the intensive Moai construction eventually declined around 1500 AD. What are the leading theories about what led to this significant shift in Rapa Nui society?
This period coincided with increasing environmental pressures on the island and the emergence of a new religious practice centered around the Tangata Manu, or Birdman cult. It appears there was a significant cultural transition taking place. Interestingly, some Moai, such as the impressive basalt figure Hoa Hakanaya, bear intricate carvings that are directly associated with this later Birdman religion, clearly demonstrating this overlap and evolution of cultural beliefs and practices.
It's a powerful reminder that history is rarely static. Cultures are constantly evolving and adapting. Now, we've discussed some of the well-substantiated theories surrounding the Moai, but as your sources might also touch upon, there are also more fringe, less conventional ideas that have captured public imagination, haven't there? Theories involving ancient aliens or lost continents, for example.
Yes, the sheer scale and enduring mystery of the Moai have inevitably led to more unconventional explanations capturing the public imagination. Theories involving the intervention of ancient extraterrestrial beings, or the idea that Easter Island is a surviving remnant of a larger, now submerged continent like Atlantis, have gained some popular traction. However, it's crucial to emphasize, as your scholarly sources likely do, that these hypotheses lack credible archaeological and scientific support. The overwhelming body of evidence points to the remarkable ingenuity and resourcefulness of the Rapa Nui people themselves.
And what about the long-standing narrative of societal collapse on Rapa Nui linked to deforestation, a theme that often appears in discussions of the island's history? Is that still considered the primary explanation for the changes that occurred?
The traditional narrative often directly links the decline in Moai construction and a supposed societal collapse to widespread deforestation and the depletion of vital natural resources, suggesting a form of ecological self-destruction. While it's undeniable that environmental challenges existed on Rapa Nui, recent research, which may be reflected in some of your more up-to-date sources, suggests a more complex and nuanced picture. We need to be cautious about overly simplistic interpretations. Factors such as the introduction of the Polynesian rat, which likely had a substantial impact on the island's calm forests, also need to be seriously considered as contributing factors to deforestation.
So it wasn't necessarily a straightforward cause and effect scenario of they cut down all the trees to move the statues and then their society crumbled. It sounds like there were likely multiple interconnected factors at play. And what about the deliberate toppling of many of the Moai in the later centuries, a dramatic event documented in historical accounts? What's the current understanding of that phenomenon?
In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, the Moai were indeed systematically toppled. This is widely interpreted by researchers, as your sources likely explain, as a consequence of internal conflicts between different clans or a significant and widespread shift in religious beliefs, potentially linked to the rise of the Birdman cult. It's theorized that toppling the Moai was a symbolic act intended to diminish the perceived mana of rival groups. The fact that they were often pushed over face down suggests an act of defiance or even a symbolic defeat.
It's a powerful and poignant image, these once revered figures being deliberately brought down. It speaks to a period of significant upheaval and transformation on the island. Now, in the modern world, the Moai have acquired a whole new layer of significance, haven't they?
Absolutely. Since their discovery by European explorers in 1722, the Moai have transcended their original cultural context and become a truly global symbol. They represent mystery, wonder, and the incredible capacity of human creativity to achieve extraordinary feats against seemingly insurmountable odds. They've deeply permeated popular culture, appearing in countless books, films, documentaries, and online discussions, continuing to inspire awe and intense speculation.
And their profound cultural and historical value is now formally recognized on a global scale, as your sources would confirm.
Yes, recognizing their immense importance to human history and cultural heritage, Easter Island and its Moai were designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There are ongoing and dedicated efforts focused on their preservation, meticulous study, and careful restoration. which is absolutely crucial for the benefit of future generations and for deepening our understanding.
And there's also an increasingly important movement to involve the Rapa Nui community more directly in this ongoing work and to address some of the historical injustices that have occurred.
Indeed. Contemporary archaeological research increasingly emphasizes genuine collaboration with the Rapa Nui community, acknowledging their deep and enduring connection to their ancestral heritage and actively incorporating their traditional knowledge and perspectives into our understanding of the Moai. Furthermore, as you mentioned, there are growing and significant movements advocating for the repatriation of Moai that were removed from the island in the past, recognizing their rightful place within the Rapa Nui cultural landscape and their immense cultural significance to living descendants.
It truly feels like our understanding of the Moai is constantly evolving as we continue to learn more and as perspectives broaden. Now, before we conclude our historic road trip to Rapa Nui, are there any particularly interesting facts or common misconceptions about the Moai that you feel are especially important for people to be aware of?
Definitely.
Yeah.
One of the most persistent and widespread misnomers is the common phrase Easter Island heads. It's absolutely crucial to remember, as your sources will undoubtedly illustrate, that all Moai possess full torsos, although many are partially buried, particularly those that remain in the Ranawaraku quarry. Also, the variation in their size is quite remarkable. While the average Moai stood around 13 feet tall and weighed approximately 13 tons, the unfinished El Gigante in the quarry, had it been completed, would have stood an astonishing nearly 72 feet tall and weighed potentially over 150 tons. And even the tallest one successfully erected, known as Paro, was still a massive 33 feet in height.
Those figures truly bring their immense scale into sharp perspective. Are there any other surprising or lesser-known details about the Moai?
Yes, many Moai feature intricate carvings, or petroglyphs, on their backs, particularly those found at Ranawaraku and the well-known Hoa Hakanaya.
Huh.
These markings may have been added at a later period and could be associated with the Birdman religion that we discussed earlier. There's even one particularly intriguing Moai with a carving of a European sailing ship, a fascinating and direct historical record of their later contact with the outside world. And then there's Tukuturi, the unique kneeling Moai that also features a beard, which stands out significantly from all the other Moai and might be linked to specific rituals or festivals that differed from the main Moai tradition. Finally, it's important to remember that several Moai are currently housed in museums around the world, including prominent institutions like the British Museum, the Musée du Quai Branly in Paris, and the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C.
It serves as a powerful reminder of the global impact and enduring fascination that these remarkable figures hold. For anyone listening who has been captivated by our historic road trip today and wants to explore the world of the Moai in even greater detail, where would you recommend they begin their further exploration?
There are some truly excellent resources available. The Easter Island Statue Project website, eisp.org, is an absolute treasure trove of ongoing research, detailed findings, and stunning imagery. The UNESCO World Heritage Center website provides essential historical and cultural context. If you're interested in seeing some Moai up close without traveling to Rapa Nui, the online collections of museums like the British Museum are invaluable. For visual learners, look for documentaries produced by organizations like Nova or National Geographic, as well as videos featuring the leading archaeologists in the field, such as Joanne Van Tilburg, Terry Hunt, and Carl Lipo. For more in-depth reading, The Statues That Walked by Hunt and Lipo is an excellent starting point, offering a compelling overview of their research. While Jared Diamond's Collapse also discusses Easter Island, it's beneficial to approach it with a critical perspective, considering more recent findings. And of course, online platforms like Reddit can host interesting discussions, particularly in subreddits like Rask Historians or Anthropology, though always be sure to evaluate the credibility of the information you find. Don't forget to explore the websites of major museums, many of which have dedicated sections on their Easter Island collections. And there are also some great archaeology and history podcasts out there.
Absolutely. Travel blogs can be a great source of information as well.
Definitely. They offer first-hand accounts and often beautiful photography.
So as our historic road trip to the enigmatic shores of Rapa Nui draws to a close, what single aspect of these silent sentinels resonates most strongly with you, having explored them through the fascinating material you shared with us?
For me, it's the sheer resilience and extraordinary ingenuity of the Rapa Nui people.
I agree.
To conceive of, meticulously create, and successfully transport these colossal figures using the seemingly limited resources available to them is an absolutely astounding testament to human capability. It speaks volumes about their complex social organization, the profound depth of their spiritual beliefs, and their unwavering determination to leave such a monumental legacy.
The story of the Moai is indeed a powerful reminder of human ingenuity, incredible perseverance, and the enduring mysteries that the past continues to hold. From their origins in the volcanic quarry to their final imposing presence on the Oahu, each statue represents an unbelievable feat of engineering and a profound and enduring connection to deeply held ancestral beliefs.
And consider this. Even with all the extensive research conducted and the advanced technology we now possess, the full and complete story of Moai continues to slowly unfold. What other fascinating secrets might this remote and captivating island and its magnificent statues still hold, waiting to be discovered? It truly makes you ponder the remarkable capacity of past civilizations, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Thank you so much for joining us on this historic road trip to delve into the mysteries of the Moai. We sincerely hope this exploration of the history books and uncovered sources you provided has ignited your own curiosity to further explore the captivating world of the Moai and the rich history of Rapa Nui. Please do share your thoughts and let us know what other historical enigmas you'd be interested in us exploring on future historic road trips.